The first duty of government is to protect our rights.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government in what we were tasked to do.
Obviously, we over budgeted last year. I hate to say that I was right, but I was right. So.
And I think that that's what we need to look at more, is trying to get back to what we used to be, where our churches and our families took care of each other instead of relying on the state.
And we have no way to maintain control over the spending of this program, and it will be a disaster for this state long term.
But we have a whole gamut of kids whose parents would like to do something for them and they cannot.
I take our constitutional rights, the constitutional rights of my constituents, very seriously.
This is simply about putting it out of reach of young, innocent, vulnerable children and making our libraries and schools a safe place for them to go.
And I am increasingly frustrated that we cannot stop ourselves from drinking at the public trough.
He's sounding the alarm. He's saying if we don't address these issues, we potentially might have greater problems moving forward.
Mr. Speaker, no matter how you look at it, no matter how you boil this down, there is never any time that a parent's right to govern what their children see and what they're exposed to should ever be bypassed.
If I was looking at a business and I was looking at these figures, there would be heads rolling because this is unsustainable.
We're supposed to be bottom-up government. We're supposed to be representing my citizens' ideas and your citizens' ideas, and we're supposed to be discussing them and debating them to come to a conclusion.
We need to start making Idaho first. We need to start making America first.
We need to be protecting our First Amendment rights, not inventing ways to slowly chip away at them.
The First Amendment and our freedom of religion, freedom of speech are our first liberties. They are so important. We don't have the rest without them.
The Senate will then advance to the 12th order of business, second reading of bills. The Senate is at the 12th order. Senator Hartog.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent that all bills on second reading be read by number and author only, and the journal show they've been read at length.
Hearing no objection, it is so ordered.
In the Senate, Senate Bill 1035 by Health and Welfare Committee.
Senate Bill 1035 will be referred to the 13th order of business, third reading calendar.
There is no further business in the 12th order, Mr. President.
The Senate will then advance to the 13th order of business, third reading of bills. The Senate is at the 13th order and will have before it, for final and immediate consideration, Senate Bill 1028. The Senate Secretary will read the bill.
In the Senate, Senate Bill 1028 by Judiciary and Rules Committee.
Okay, everybody, welcome. Idaho Signal's on the air. We are currently looking in here at the Senate as they conduct business on the floor today. We do expect them to take on House Concurrent Resolution number 2, although I think they might have just pushed that a day. That was the resolution to commemorate the stand that the Boise State University women's volleyball team took by not wanting to compete against a male student in their sport. And that just comes on the heels of yesterday of President Trump signing that executive order saying no men in women's sports, no boys in girls' sports across the country. It was a fantastic win. As the father of a daughter, I'm extremely pleased by it, and I loved seeing the signing that happened there. A big shout out to Representative Barbara Ehart. She has been on the tip of the spear on this issue for many, many years, and a big proponent, obviously, of women's sports. She was a Division I college basketball coach herself and player, and so we just want to commend her work. I think it was a banner day for her yesterday, and all the work that she has done, not only in Idaho, but in traveling across the country with Riley Gaines and other activists on that issue. So very good there. We'll get you up to speed what's going on there. There's also the chicken bill. It may sound silly, but I think this is an important bill. I mean, when you look at the price of eggs and you look, I mean, somebody sent me a photograph. They said that even Costco, they were just out of eggs. And this is a big issue. I mean, if you're dependent upon eggs in the store and egg manufacturers and their chickens, I mean, I think they destroyed like 100 million chickens because of the avian flu or some other reason. Like the chicken farms and chickens have just been decimated. You're going to have a shortage of eggs, and that's what's going on. So I think this is a very timely bill. If HOAs can open up their rules there, if we can get them to open up their rules and allow folks to have chickens, then that'll alleviate one of the more crucial elements of a healthy diet. I'm not a dietitian, but I think we can all agree that eggs are a necessity. So we'll keep tabs on that as we watch that. That's Senate bill. Oh, I had it here and then I lost it. I forget the number, but we'll get on there. But they're going to be voting on it in the Senate, and if it passes there, it'll move over to the House. That's Senate Bill 1026 by Tammy Nichols. Thank you, gentlemen in the booth. Okay. Okay, so we're going to take things one at a time today, folks. We're going to take things one at a time. A, because I'm exhausted, okay? And B, because there's a lot of different moving parts, a lot of things we got to hop all over the place. One of the things that I wanted to make sure it just wasn't just a flash in the pan, is the situation happening with Major David Worley in the Idaho Army National Guard. We had his lawyer, one of his lawyers on here from Liberty Counsel, who's representing him in a case against the governor and two generals in the Idaho Army National Guard for wrongful. He wasn't terminated or dismissed, but he's been put on leave simply because of his religious beliefs and because of his out of uniform activities in his community. And so you may have heard this story already, but I just kind of wanted to play one clip here from the interview that we had earlier. Was it on Monday or Tuesday? Was it Tuesday that we had this clip on? And I just want to, because I want you folks to be able to do something. Okay. It's not just about having the information. It's about what you can do. So let's watch this clip here, that I had, this moment I had here with one of his counsel. Where does this all sit? Because the way I understand it, Governor Little is the commander-in-chief of the Idaho Army National Guard. And does he have any powers here to say, like, look, this is obnoxious. We're reinstate Worley or do whatever we need to do and just toss this whole thing right out the window? Does he have the ability to do that?
He could do that, and he could do it today. In fact, before we filed this suit, Liberty Counsel sent a letter to the governor and said, look, here's what's going on with Major Worley. This is under your command. This isn't me. This isn't the U.S. Department of Defense. You're in complete control of the Idaho National Guard as the commander-in-chief. And we sent a letter to him saying, look, this is unconstitutional, it's unlawful, and it's unconscionable to treat a man who has dedicated almost 3 years of in service of his nation to this kind of treatment. A man who swore an oath to protect the Constitution is entitled to constitutional protections that he provides you and I. And we told the governor that, and we said, knock this off. It's time to knock it off. It's in your control. And what he says was, I can't do anything about it. So here we are. Okay, fine. Well, we have to file a federal lawsuit seeking a temporary restraining order and injunctive relief against you in your capacity as the governor. You can say it's not in your control all you want to. We'll go to court and prove that it is, and he could do it today. Lawsuit pending. This is completely within his control to say stop.
Yeah.
Put him back
we'll call out of this. I just remember that the audio with Daniel there wasn't too great, but I think you can kind of get the gist. I mean, the guy's been there 23 years, impeccable service, and the governor has complete control over this. And for the governor to say, there's nothing I can do. You're the commander in chief of the Idaho Army National Guard. You certainly can try. You can certainly write on a piece of paper, have your team write on a piece of paper that this persecution against Major Worley is uncalled for, and you demand that he be reinstated at his current rank and position and whatever authority he had, like that he goes right back in there. And everybody else is just going to have to deal with the fact that there's somebody that has a different opinion than him. I mean, that's all that it came down to. You have a different opinion. You find out that your superior officer has a different opinion than you, and then you go complain about it and say, I feel like I'm in a hostile work environment. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Also, if you're that weak, maybe you should retire from the Idaho Army National Guard. If that is what gets you so scared and so afraid, I'd hate to have you guarding anything. All right? Do we have his name? Is this complaint's name? It's probably in the document. I don't want to sit here and out him or whatever yet, but come on, that's ridiculous, man. So anyway, there's the number right there, 208-334-2100. You tell Governor Little, you ask him to reinstate Major David Worley back into the Idaho Army National Guard. That's the number there. It's going to come up and down throughout the program, but we look, if he says he can't do it, that's why they're suing him. To tell him, yes, you can. And and at the very least, you can try. You can try. You're the governor. You're the governor. You can let murderers out of jail with the stroke of a pen. You can't say, hey, you guys, knock it off. Major Worley, get back to work. Really? That's the system that we had set up here? I don't think so. Okay, folks, we need you to call. We need you to keep that up. So there's the number. We're going to have it throughout the show, throughout the week, until this thing, throughout forever, until it comes up. And we're going to keep hounding on this particular issue here. 208-334-2100. That's the Governor Little's office. And hey, look, you can talk to him about a lot of different things that you don't like. But this one I think is pretty important. It's definitely very important. Okay, very good. So let's see. Yesterday, well, let me just kind of set the rest of the day up here. We're going to still try and get Brian Allman on. We got to have the Allman report on here, and then also we put a word out to Representative Dale Hawkins because we wanted to get into the weeds a little bit more on this constitutional amendment that he's trying to. I don't know if it's an amendment; it's a rewording of the Constitution when it comes to education. And I think if you're a homeschool family, this is what you need. Like, you need this. You need this more than you may think. You need this. And this is going to be very, very powerful moving forward. So hopefully we'll have Representative Hawkins on to do that. If not today, then hopefully either tomorrow or next week. But we're always working because we're always watching the floor and trying to get as many good people on here as possible. Okay. Yesterday in the, it was the Health and Welfare Committee in the Senate, Senator Brandon Shippey finally had his hearing for the bill that would open up and restore Second Amendment rights back to foster parents. And if you recall, one of the big issues is that foster parents, in order to be approved in the system and be granted, a child to take care of, they had to succumb to some rules that basically kind of dictated how and where they could store their firearms and such. And so I believe the rule is that if you were going to be a foster parent, you had to keep your ammunition locked up separately from your locked up firearms. Now, I don't have to tell you good people out there how ridiculous that is. That being, especially in a life and death situation. And so, and nobody else has to do that in Idaho to a large degree, right? And so why should foster parents? And especially when they're going to be in the charge of taking care of and defending the life of a new child. And so Senator Shippey went in there with some recommendations, with some removals of that language. And it was very, it was a good hearing. There was a lot of back and forth and stuff. One of the things that I did want to highlight was Senator Bjerke, who sits on that committee, wanted to point out within the language of the bill, the difference between telling people that they need to keep something locked in a safe, or they need to direct them on how to keep something being inaccessible to children. And with foster parents, when you're in a foster care system, there are certain things that they want to make sure your house is prepared for, because, each child is different, and you may be taking in some special needs kids or older kids with behavioral issues or whatever, infants and stuff. So when the state is working with you and these foster agencies are working with you, they want to make sure that, your home is prepped and ready to go. And so he brought up a good point about, we don't tell people how to do all the other things. We just assign the warning that you need to make sure you're adhering to these standards. And so Senator Bierke wanted to point that out, that line, a couple of lines in this bill, and I thought it'd be nice to highlight this moment here. So let's watch that.
I just have a slight bit more discussion. I don't want to muddy the waters of what the attempt is here, and understand the presentation. But I have to say I agree with you on line 34, that we're not specifying to the foster parents that they have to lock ammunition or the gun in separate locations, and nor are we specifying that it needs to be locked in a safe. We're just making a general statement that the gun should be not accessible to the child. And I'd be remiss if I didn't express those thoughts, that I do agree that is a prudent thing, that potentially it would remind a parent as they're going to look at that video that, my gun should not be accessible. And I just wanted to get that point out there. I'm fully in agreement that we shouldn't be dictating things, especially when it comes to Second Amendment rights and our constitutional rights and the ability for people to protect themselves in their home. But when you have a list, of keeping hazardous materials away and out of the reach of a child, I think it doesn't hurt to have the firearm be in that same category. And that's just my thoughts on it.
Very good. Okay, so I like those good comments there from Senator Bierke, and he, along with the majority of the committee, sent that bill to the Senate floor to be voted upon. I think the only negative came from the Democrat on the committee, Melissa Wintrow, and which wasn't a big surprise. So yeah. Great. Congratulations, Mr. Shippey. He was on the program. We talked about that bill, and he talked about how him and his wife are foster parents, and they ran into that issue at the time. And when they and while they complied with it, they thought, well, this really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And so they looked into the issue and worked with foster agencies to get that language in that bill and everything. So we applaud him for that. Good bills coming through. We're going to await the chicken bill. 1026. We'll see if that goes through for all you chicken wannabe chicken owners. You want to have your own eggs. It's crazy. I used to drive around and be like, people would have their egg stands on the streets, and it'd be like $5 a dozen, $5 a dozen for some nice farm fresh eggs, versus, at the time, like $1.83 a dozen at the supermarket. I'm like, well, when you're flying through eggs, sometimes the $1.83 is better. Boy, those $5 a dozen eggs are looking mighty good right now. And if you had your own chickens, you wouldn't have to be paying that much anyway. So we'll see how it goes. We'll pay attention to those bills. There's a lot of great bills out there that, there are some bills out there that have such huge ramifications, but they seem so kind of like minor. They're like, why would we? What's with like the chicken bill or the mask bill? But these have huge ramifications, and it's something that really affects people right there at home. And so the more we can get these bills over the hump and get them through, along with all of the big stuff like property taxes and income tax and sales tax and all that sort of jazz, we can do it all. We can do it all at once. Let's just keep moving forward, folks. Let's keep moving forward. This is really good stuff. Okay. Let's move to something that happened in the in this House State Affairs this morning. We were supposed to hear a bill, H-98, and this would bar government money being funneled into teachers' unions. And when you see what's happening at the national level with USAID, USAID, and where all their money is going, hot take here. If you want to support Idaho Signal with the amount of money that USAID, you can go to idahosignal.com and donate there as well. If you want to write a check for $47,000 or $8 million, like USC, we'll take it. It's perfectly fine. But this morning, House Bill 98 was supposed to be heard, and here's what happened. There was no sound. That's what happened. Let's back it up and turn on the sound. So this morning, a lot of union folks were in the audience. You can see them there. Those look like classic union guys, right? Gotta love them. But they were, there you go, buddy. Go ahead and play now.
I have 3 members that have let me know that they are not going to be here. And so I'm going to ask unanimous consent that House Bill 98 be rescheduled for a hearing on Monday. Is there an objection? Hearing none, we will put House Bill 98 on the agenda for Monday. So we will only take up the 3 RSs in front of us.
Okay, so all the union people that showed up to testify for that bill, either for or against, I'm not going to suggest I know exactly what all the union folks were there on a bill that would prevent government money from going to teachers' unions, but they were all there today. Apparently it was the AFL-CIO union day at the Capitol, and so they stacked this committee, and then the bill just got postponed because the committee there was a few members not there, so they were going to have the hearing on Monday. So sorry guys, I guess you're going to have to come back and try again on Monday. Those things happen. Okay, but what did happen over in the House Health and Welfare Committee was a very important bill, H-59. And this is called the Medical Defense Act, I believe. Yeah, Medical Ethics Defense Act. And what this basically will say is it will give protection to medical professionals who don't want to engage in medical procedures or any sort of anything that would violate their personal beliefs and their personal ethics. So, for instance, being forced to do a transgender, gender mutilation surgery, or being forced to do an abortion or something like that just goes against their ethical and principle and moral concepts. This isn't a bill that says doctors can just discriminate wholeheartedly against people. It's about the engagement in these elective practices. And so a very important bill. A lot of folks showed up to testify for and against it. We're going to get into a bunch of that testimony here in a moment. And I also believe that Brian Allman is with us too. So we will take a short break. We'll bring in Allman. We'll watch some of that committee, and we'll keep the show rolling. We'll be right back.
And that's exactly what happened. You want to pull the tape? You can pull the tape because we now got video.
Idaho is the dirt under your fingernails after an honest day's work. Idaho is the hug around your neck when your daughter spells her first word. Idaho is the written word of the law, steadfast and impartial, guarding liberty for all. Idaho is the family rifle passed down, a legacy of protection and the right to stand firm. Idaho is the echo of your own voice, unshaken and free, standing tall among the world's silenced. Idaho is the home that's built to weather storms, not empty wallets. Idaho is the quiet trust between a patient and healer, unbroken and sacred. Idaho is the hymn carried by the Spirit, gathering neighbors together in faith and purpose. Idaho is the laughter around a campfire, a family's bond growing stronger with every word. Idaho is the pioneer's will, firm and clear. We govern ourselves, free and unbound. Idaho is what America was. Let's keep it that way. Ask your legislator to sign the Citizens Alliance of Idaho pledge to preserve our shared values. We ride together. Okay, everybody, welcome back. It is Matt Edwards here, Idaho Signal, reminding you to call the governor. Call Governor Little and ask him to reinstate Major David Worley. 208-334-2100. I saw a comment in the chat saying, "What did he do? What did he do to get dismissed?" Yeah, there it is. What did he do? What he did is he in his private capacity, he was standing up for no drag queen story hours in the library, no drag shows in front of kids, no naughty books in the library in the kids section, all sorts of common sense things, girls and men and women's sports, that sort of thing. And he was doing that as part of his campaign when he was running for mayor and state legislature. Had nothing to do with him being in the he wasn't doing it in the National Guard. It was in his own private capacity when he was running for office. And so when he showed up for work at his new assignment, somebody Googled him and said, "Oh my God, this guy's one of those extremists, one of those common sense extremists," and then filed a complaint against him. And then he got put on leave for 1.5 years, paid leave. So call the governor. He's the commander in chief of the Idaho Army National Guard, and he can get David Worley back reinstated. Okay. The Senate has adjourned, so no more bills today, no chicken bill today, no women's basketball today as well, BSU women's basketball today. So we'll just move on till tomorrow. Very good. Brian Allman is with us. Brian, good to see you. He's at the Capitol. He's been there. He was hoping to see he was a big fan of the chicken bill. He was hoping to see that get debated on the floor. What's happening over there at the Capitol, Allman?
Oh, well, there's all sorts of stuff. There's a couple tour groups here. There's some folks who were talking about the why Bayer shouldn't have immunity to lawsuits. That bill from last year is going to be back this year, so we'll have to address that when it comes up again.
Wait, say it again. A what?
So you remember last year there was a bill that would essentially say that Bayer Monsanto would have essentially
Bayer and
immunity
Monsanto, yes,
from lawsuits. Yeah, and that it was defeated by one in the Senate last year. They tried it again, didn't get out of committee. They tried it again, so they're bringing it back this year.
Yeah, is that in the Agricultural Committee?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it'll go through agriculture or Juden rules or commerce. It depends on how they frame it.
Yeah, because yesterday in the Agricultural Committee, the bill that would have said we should label our food if it has insects in it.
Yes,
or
that
if
was House Agriculture a couple days ago, and that one failed in committee.
Yeah, it failed in committee, you guys. Did you all know that out there? The bill that would have labeled food if it had insects in it, so that you would know.
Or fake meat.
Or lab-grown meat. The food lobby was hard. They were hard in that committee, and that bill failed. And there you go. And there was no roll call vote, so we don't know exactly who voted against it. But nonetheless, that's where that stood. Okay, sorry, Allman, you were saying.
Oh yeah, I was just telling you who else here. As you mentioned, it was AFL-CIO came down to the Capitol today, so they were there. They crowded the Senate gallery long enough to get introduced, and then I assume they moved over to the House gallery because they all filed out. But they're all here. It's a festive environment today in the Capitol. But obviously, lots of legislation. We got that medical ethics bill this morning. I was over in House State Affairs where there were some RSs introduced, some interesting ones. Representative Redmond had a bill that would require Bible reading in public schools, not Bible instruction, not denominational or anything. Just read 10 verses in the morning when you do your flag salute. And there's some skepticism on the committee, so we'll see what happens. They passed it. They voted to print it, so we'll see what happens in a full hearing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was just a print hearing, so it'll come back for a full hearing. Yeah, that should be pretty. And that was in House Education, correct?
Oh yeah, House Ed. That's right. I misspoke. Too many committees this morning. House State Affairs was actually full because all the union folks were in there. So I went over to House Education. Yeah, and there's Blake Cunzetti, president of the Idaho Family Policy Center, who they're some of the major backers of this bill. It's one of their legislative priorities this year.
Yeah, and we had it was the medical defense bill. Yeah, so we'll pay attention to this bill. I know there's some interest in that. But let's talk about the Medical Ethics Defense Act. A good friend of the program, Kate Hartley, did some remote testimony. So let's play a little bit of that.
Good morning, Chairman and committee. My name is Catherine Hartley. I'm an attorney in Coeur d'Alene for the Pacific Justice Institute, and we encourage a yes vote on this bill. No one in the healthcare field should have to decide between their closely held religious, moral, or ethical beliefs and their career in the healthcare field. As the scientific and medical fields experience a rapid change, so must our laws. As noted in our written statement of support for HB 59, this legislation provides a much needed expansion of conscience rights not provided in current federal or state law. Historically, these protections have been limited to the interventions of abortion, assisted suicide, and sterilization. This bill recognizes that objections may arise in other areas of medicine and does not prioritize certain objections over others. Moreover, this bill would allow healthcare professionals to rely firmly on state law rather than federal regulations that may be subject to political whims. This bill also expands on the rights afforded by federal Title VII and its state counterpart to cover the beliefs of students and those who may work for smaller employers. Finally,
Okay,
this
very
legislation
good.
protects
Kate
free
Hartley
speech
there
rights
from PJI, Catherine Hartley, good friend of the program. Brian, so yeah, again, these are some very, very specific type of procedures and thing. This isn't just saying that like a doctor can just, walk over a patient if he thinks that they're gay. If they're lying in the street because there was a car accident or something, right? We heard some testimony from a popular citizen testifier, Nixon Matthews, that kind of alluded to the fact that this will just allow people to just deny all types of medical service to somebody that they disagree with, and that's not what this bill does.
No, I haven't had a chance to read the text of the bill, but it sounds like from what everyone's, all the testifiers are saying about it is that that's not the case. It's about conscience rights. It's like the baked cake issue over in Colorado, where the cake store owner was happy to serve people who were LGBTQ, whatever. It's just he's not going to write things or create things that he believes are against his conscience, and I can't think of any medical professional who would step over a dying person in the street. That's that's completely antithetical to what they've devoted their lives to.
I don't know about that, Allman. We got a couple of examples here. Let's bring up that article. Let's bring up that article from FEMA. If you recall, there was a big hurricane on the East Coast, Brian, and this is from ABC7. FEMA, a fired FEMA worker accused of skipping homes with Trump signs, says she was just following protocol. So apparently there's certain protocol against Trump voters, Trump supporters. And then, if you recall, Brian, in the LA fires that just happened at the beginning of the year, somebody uncovered this LA Fire Department promotional video where this particular firefighter said the following. Let's listen to this.
See somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you. It gives that person a little bit more ease, knowing that somebody might understand their situation better. Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire, which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
I mean, maybe there's some validity to this argument, but I don't know. I know I'm being a little bit facetious here, but those are the types of things that seem to be institutionalized at a level that is completely out of line with any normal person's thinking, right?
Yeah, that's I don't know where that comes from, and it's interesting that she says that my godparents are. My godfather is a firefighter for many years, and he's a big guy. And it was his wife who always said she was against female firefighters because she wanted somebody who'd be able to carry her husband out of fire if he got injured. And that's just practicality. That's not ideology. That's not politics. That's just the laws of physics there. But
yes.
We've had this runaway train in our country of going so far off track. So we've seen maybe some inklings of it getting back on track, and hopefully things like this bill this morning will get us back on track here in Idaho, where people can live out their consciences without necessarily impacting the other people around them.
Right. Well, this is Representative Bruce Scogg's bill. He closed with this after, but we're not going to watch some of the other testimony here, but he closed with these remarks here. Let's take a listen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee. Yes, I would like to make some closing comments since there was negative testimony. First of all, there was an organization that representative that testified, and they want us to follow the science and they want us to follow the medicine. Well, that's the same organization that thinks boys can be girls and girls can be boys, and that you can take off healthy body parts of children. They've testified to that in this House before. So I don't give them any credibility at all. We've heard examples of the hardships that many people have been through. You have a letter from, I believe, at least 20 professionals, many of them MDs, that talks about what they went through and why they want this bill to pass. I thank the doctors and medical professionals who have testified here today. You may not realize it, but it takes a lot of courage. You have 3 nurses that state where they work. They send a letter. They put their jobs on the line when they stand up like this and talk to a committee. We have many anonymous letters that came to me that were from providers that did not want to give their names for fear of losing their job. I've not given those to you. Dr. Rodney Story, family practitioner in Moscow, Idaho, I found his testimony very compelling as to why we should pass this bill. And by the way, other states have passed this before us. This is not unique. Up to 15 years ago, one of those states, they've not had a plethora of lawsuits or closing down of medical facilities. My belief is they've actually increased the number of medical personnel that have come into those states. And I gave you an example when I brought you this for print at the RS hearing of my own relative by marriage, who now practices up in the North Idaho, Washington area as an internist. When he had to leave the state, go to Washington for his medical training, he was under constant pressure to refer out for abortion. They never asked him to do an abortion, but he was under constant pressure. He had to keep quiet on his closely held religious beliefs. He's Christian, or he would not have gotten through his medical school. So it's real. The discrimination is real, and this bill, I believe, will help Idaho have a better medical program everywhere we go, and better medical providers.
Yes, very good. Okay, so once again, it's so fascinating, Brian. You know, we have to have these bills, and we have this case with Major David Worley too, where like simply being a Christian and having these beliefs is like the hammer comes down, and you just kind of have to push back against this. So this is just another one of those examples.
Yeah, there's an author named Aaron Wren who wrote a book called Life in the Negative World, and he says that Christianity used to be the kind of the default. Even if you weren't Christian, that set the stage for our culture in our country, and going to church was seen as a positive thing. Now it's almost like culture as a whole, especially high class culture, has turned it into a negative. If you go to church, if you actually believe those things, then what, you're kind of an extremist, aren't you? J.D. Vance, our now vice president, he wrote an article years ago before he even ran for Senate about why he converted to Catholicism. He came out kind of just a cultural Christian from high school, from his hometown, and he went to the Marine Corps, went to Yale, and he was surrounded by people for whom kind of a secular humanism was just the default, and if you believed anything else, then you were the weirdo. But then he reconnected and eventually made that choice to believe, and that's, I think, what we need. We need more people like the vice president or like Representative Skog or all the people who testified, showing that this isn't an extreme view. This is still, I think, the heart of America.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the norm. It's the norm. And I appreciate folks like Bruce Skog. I also mentioned that Senator Brandon Shippey, I think he operates from the same standpoint. I mean, the normal thing is to, for like in the instance with the Second Amendment, like we've strayed away from the normal that the Second Amendment outlines, right? Like that's normal. The normal thing is to be able to defend yourself from anything.
Well,
and we've strayed from that, and we need to get back to the normal.
It's like with Major David Worley, his position that men in dresses shouldn't be acting sexual around children. That should be the norm, and anyone who complains about that, maybe they're the ones who should be ushered out of the National Guard.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the danger that they impose on children. Yeah, very good. All right, Brian, good to see you. We'll see you back here on Friday. We'll have another article as well to push out there for tomorrow. So we'll look forward to that. But what else? What else is going on? You're looking forward for the end of the week here?
Oh goodness, it's already Friday. Well, the school choice tax cut bill might hit the floor as early as tomorrow. In which case we'll be focused on that. And then everything else is still happening. It's a flurry down here. I just need to sit down and write out, okay, what are my top 10 things to follow here, and
Very good.
Put that ads.
All right, well, share that list with the rest of us.
Oh,
we'll
and
keep
I was
tabs
just going to
with
say
you.
real quick, I'm on my way to Capital Clarity, Idaho Freedom Foundation, our friends, Representative Tanner, Representative Razor from up North Idaho. They're going to talk about state sovereignty. So, after you're done watching Idaho Signal, switch over to that.
Oh, yeah, fantastic. Very good. All right, folks, that's it for the Almond Man. We'll see you in a bit. All right. Okay, let's take a short break, and we'll be back.
Coming from within the system, which the process in the system is broken.
All Idaho lawmakers swear an oath to support the Idaho and U.S. constitutions. But how's that working out for you? Because not all Idaho lawmakers share the same values. That's where the Citizens Alliance of Idaho pledge comes in. 10 statements inspired by those 2 founding documents that are designed to preserve our shared values. Values such as education freedom, safeguarding free speech, defending our protected right to self-defense, and being responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars. When a lawmaker signs the pledge, they are performing an act of political courage, accepting the challenge to be a champion for our values, and serving with political integrity. To find out if your lawmaker signed the pledge, visit idahopledge.com. Paid for by Citizens Alliance of Idaho. We ride together.
Hi, this is Dennis Smith calling from Reno, Nevada. I'm a homeowner in McCall, Idaho, and I just found your program on the TV, and I will follow you. So thanks for what you're doing. Talk to you later. Bye.
Well, thank you, Dennis. Dennis from McCall via Reno, Nevada. I love it. Folks, you can leave your voicemail. That's a nice voicemail to get, It's a nice voicemail to get. 208-402-4915 to leave your voicemail. If you missed this moment right now, I don't know why I'm telling you that, because you can't miss it if you're listening to me say it. But if you are not watching live, it's still okay to call and leave your message. Give us up to about 60 seconds worth. A rant, a praise, if you want to give us some praise, like good old Dennis did. 208-402-4915 is the number to leave your message. Very good. Okay, another thing of note, because this, you might think we're heading off into conspiracy theory land here. I don't have my tinfoil hat, but it's not a conspiracy theory when you look up in the sky and you constantly see what people call contrails, right? They say those are just contrails, the stuff, the white stuff coming off of airplanes. Some contrails just immediately disappear as the plane goes by, and other contrails, like, they stay around for hours, they expand, and then they create an entire haze over the area. And so either those are just contrails that are sticking around, or it's some sort of cloud seeding project or whatever. But the fact is that Idaho does have a cloud seeding program. And Senator Tammy Nichols actually was on that committee at the time that I think approved or re-upped or whatever a cloud seeding program in Idaho. And cloud seeding basically is to say, hey, we want to go up there and do some cloud seeding and create clouds so that we could get some snow or some rain in particular areas of the state. So it's a technology that's out there. It's on our statute. It does happen, cloud seeding. And Senator Tammy Nichols was in a committee today asking, since so many people are concerned about what they see up in the skies, she wants to provide them with some transparency about what exactly is going on above us. So here she is in committee.
Bill does is this, we have a cloud seeding program, and right now there are no clear rules for reporting cloud seeding activities in Idaho. This bill changes that by requiring cloud seeding operators, both state-run and private, to submit monthly and annual reports. These reports will include details like where the seeding took place, what materials were used, and how it affected the environment. The Idaho Water Resource Board will publish the annual reports on its website and present them in public meetings so that everyone can see what's happening with cloud seeding. This promotes transparency and accountability with the public. Like I said, currently there's no system in place to really track it, and so we want to make sure that we're ensuring that things are monitored and that the public understands what's going on. With new reporting requirements, people will have a clearer picture of where and how cloud seeding is happening, helping to build trust and ensure it's being done safely. In short, this bill makes cloud seeding operation more transparent by requiring regular reports on how it's going to be done. We worked with our agency partners on this language for this legislation, and you will see that most of that is on page 2, where we put in definitions and added the new section stating what the requirements will be. And with that, I will stand for any questions, but ask that you go ahead and print RS 32229C1.
Okay. Senator Lent.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, for a question.
Senator Lent.
Senator Nichols, a couple questions. One is you mentioned your partners. You used a word here that basically inferred that you're working with other folks on this. First of all, could you list who you are working with on this legislation?
Senator Nichols.
Madam Vice Chair and Senator Lent. Yes, we worked with the Idaho Water Resource Board on this language, since they're the ones that oversee the cloud seeding program.
Thank you. Follow up.
Senator Lent.
Senator Nichols, for me, a couple of things happened, just so you'll know. I'll vote to print it, but I have a couple of concerns. It comes from a position of mistrust, and also it adds a layer of government here that I'm not sure we really need. We haven't had it in the past, and it's almost like we're out to prove that it is not effective or provide some kind of control. So I will be supporting this motion. But when you come back, please have strong evidence that we're doing the right thing for the right reason here.
Okay, let's pause this. Let's pause it here, because there's another question that comes up that I want y'all to hear and listen to the answer to. I think that was a bizarre thing to kind of go down here. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, folks, throw it in the comments. All she wants is transparency. She wants there to be some reporting rules, because there isn't now. Because there are so many people that are looking up in the sky and going, what is that? What is going on? Am I in this area or not? And so for Senator Lent there to kind of push back and say, whoa, it sounds like you're going on a fishing expedition and looking for, you want to attack this and blah, blah, blah. Like, why don't we just trust the science, right? Like, trust the science. Like, let's gather the data. Let's publish it for the public to see, and just so that we can be informed about what our government dollars are paying for. I mean, it's so simple. It's so simple. Okay, let's keep watching this.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Thank you, Senator Lent.
Also, real quick, you can pause it again. The cameras. Okay, the cameras. We're going to talk about this. This stuff is being run by Idaho Public Television. Is this? I mean, come on. This is the dollars that we're doing. This is what we're doing. I mean, I know we don't have the most perfect show, right? And there's glitches every now and again, but you should see the operation that we run and how we deliver this program to you, right? And they can't get a camera to work. I mean, come on, man. This is ridiculous. All right, keep going.
Thank you. Senator Blaylock.
Madam Vice Chair, for a question.
Senator Blaylock.
We've been doing cloud seeding for decades within the states. Why are we asking them to do so much of this reporting and putting so much regulation on them now?
Senator Nichols.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair and Senator Blaylock. We have been doing some forms of cloud seeding. It's been in the last few years. I actually sat on the Agriculture Committee on the House side when we actually did put it into code. So that was a few years ago. We are seeing bans going on cloud seeding all over the United States right now, and we don't want to lose that. Because we are giving tax dollars to this entity to perform that, we want to make sure that the public understands where that money is being spent and that there's complete transparency. We just heard the other day when we had the presentation on the quagga mussels on how much reporting they do to make sure that they have that public trust and build that. So we want to do the same thing with this so that we don't have the public not trusting us on what we're doing and how we're using those tax dollars.
Yeah, and again, very good, Senator. I believe the bill got printed, so this was just a print hearing with those questions there. But it was Senator Blaylock there saying, like, why do we want to impose all this reporting on them? And then she said we're imposing regulations. I don't think that those were regulations. We weren't saying we're going to now regulate what they're doing with the cloud seeding program. We're simply saying, can you just give us a report of what you're doing up there? When you're doing it, how you're doing it. I mean, this is basic, simple stuff here. I don't think it costs anything to just issue out a report at the end of the day of what you were doing. That's it. It's simple, right? So I don't know. Simple bill, man. Transparency makes sense. Makes sense to me. You know, we're talking about things that are happening in the sky, and they turn into clouds, and then they fall to the ground. You know, I mean, you guys, you're out there doing your own research on this subject. You know, we're just trying to get you the information that's out there. So the bill got printed, and and if you want to support the bill, we'll as soon as we get the number, we'll add them to our ticker down here. We'll just add all the bill numbers. That way you know exactly where to go if you want to take on that issue. And then leave us a voicemail. Leave us a voicemail. So we know that you care about this stuff. We'll play your stuff. We played somebody on the air that was talking about, I don't know what they were talking about, but I now bring something up that I don't even remember. Okay. This next bill that came up today, I think is a very important bill. She's been working on this bill for a long time, and she says she has. And I remember her having we had a bipartisan co-sponsor. She had a Democrat co-sponsor, Representative McCrosty, back in 22, I think, was a co-sponsor. Democrat was a co-sponsor in this bill, and basically this is a free speech on college campus bill. This would make it so that free speech on college campuses can just happen, right? I mean, because right now you and you're going to say, oh, Matt, that doesn't happen. It does happen, okay? It does happen, where school and university administrators will crack down on someone out there, you know, handing out pamphlets or holding a rally or something, or simply just having a set up a card table to hand out literature about a particular topic, and they get shut down saying that they need a permit. And you don't need a permit on a public campus to share your opinion. If you do it in a peaceful manner, right? And in a non-disruptive, peaceful manner. So Representative Barbara Ehart was in the House Education Committee presenting this bill once again. And we're going to champion this bill because it's all about free speech. Let's watch a little bit of this.
Those of you who've been here with me for a little bit longer will recognize this, and those of you who are new won't. This is essentially campus free speech, and we have had a problem in Idaho with students being able to express themselves on a campus. And so essentially this legislation makes very clear that, as was stated in the Supreme Court with Healy versus James, that the First Amendment protection should apply with should not apply with less force on college campuses than in the community at large. In other words, you don't check your constitutional amendments on college campuses. College campuses basically at times, actually often, essentially feel that they are the arbiters of that which can happen on their campus. And this makes very clear that the constitutional rights continue. So this legislation eliminates speech zones, and puts limitations on, eliminates speech zones and limitations on where students can speak or distribute literature in the public accessible outdoor portions of a university campus. And it also prohibits schools from requiring advance permission for students to speak on campus. There still is permission where they can do that, but if I want to go to the campus and decide I want to have a revival, I can do that. Okay. It protects students and student groups from disciplinary action because of the lawful expression. It's unfortunately something that we just experienced in our state a couple years ago, and had some conservative students and a professor who were disciplined, and they ended up winning that lawsuit. Prohibits colleges from discriminating against student groups because of their religious, political, philosophical, or other beliefs, because the group limits membership or leadership to persons who share those beliefs. I could go on with a few more things, and I'm not sure how much that you would like to hear right now, but we'd love to get into that deeper, in-depth discussion. I think it's important to say that this is, I presented a couple times, it's flown off the House floor and it's probably gotten to the Senate floor a little too late. We have worked with many groups, including when Representative Clow was the chairman and had even asked to work with fire, which we did. The last time I brought it with Representative John McCroskey, a Democrat, and I am going to be reaching out to see if he'll come and join me at the hearing. But this is important to a lot of us. I think it's also important to say, and I don't want to confuse the issue, we have worked, I also work, and they will be here during the testimony, with Alliance Defending Freedom, and we worked very closely with Boise State. Let me preempt you. You may say, well, did you work with the University of Idaho, Idaho State, and Lewis and Clark? And what about the community colleges? Okay, it is very difficult to work with 4 to 8 colleges at the same time. Typically what a state does is they pick, I'm sure the other colleges don't want to hear it, but it's preeminent university or the university in the backyard, and you work more closely with them, and that is what I've done. So if in fact there is a desire to introduce it, we are going to make one last change at the request of Boise State. And if you would turn to page 4. When we get to page 4, 336808, line 14, on the remedies, they, instead of going immediately to the cause of action, et cetera, we would add a section. We'd change section 2 to section number 2 to number 3, and we would insert what I had before you, which would become number 2. Before pursuing relief under this section, a claimant must provide prior written notice to any alleged violation to the public institution of higher education. If the public institution of higher education fails to secure the allegation violation within 30 days, the claimant may then bring an action as described herein. The 30-day period to cure shall not count for purposes of calculating the statute limitations. So we are willing to do that, to give the universities that opportunity to resolve the problem before a cause of action is brought. And this
okay, very good. That is Representative Ehart with that bill. I think it's a fantastic bill. Sounds like she's working with the university there to give them a chance to make up for their mistakes before they get sued. I don't know. I mean, you violate someone's rights to that degree, you should be punished. But I guess we can make a concession for them to cure the problem if that's in case what happens. But sometimes you get shut down on a free speech issue, and you lose the momentum because you're in the moment, and we really need to deter. It really needs to be a big deterrent to say you will not infringe upon these rights. And so we can't do that as public institutions. So we look forward to seeing that bill. It did get printed. So we look forward to seeing that bill make its way through the House up to the governor's desk. Okay, good. All right, folks. I want to remind you right now that over at standings.citizensallianceidaho.org, this is where you can look up your legislature, okay? You can look up your legislators. If you don't know who they are, you just scroll down a little bit, and in that box, you type in your address. You hit, you can use my location or type in your address. and then the list will sort, and it will put your district at the top, and you can see who in your district has signed the pledge. It'll have a little star by it. You see Mr. Cornell Razor there. He's got a little star by his name. That means he signed the pledge. And currently he's in good standing. Now, he just entered the legislature, so we haven't graded any bills, but when you're brand new to signing the pledge, we put you in green because you said that's where you're at until we score this year. If you're in red, that means you haven't signed the pledge, or you did sign the pledge and you ended up in the bad standing. And so, yeah, you can just scroll down there and find out who in your district has signed the Citizens Alliance of Idaho pledge. Now, some of you may be asking, well, what the heck is this pledge? If we can go to bring up the pledge, I just kind of want to show you that what this pledge is basically a very simple 10 statements that are inspired by the U.S. and the Idaho constitutions. It's very, very simple. You've seen the ads that we played during the program. I mean, it's all it says is again, legislators who sign this, they use this as a tool to let you know how they plan to vote on these specific issues. So when it says, I will vote to protect your right to self-defense, or I will not vote to suppress your right to free speech and peaceful assembly, those are the things that these folks have signed on for. We have the protection. I will not vote against wise and well-directed bills that protect the life and innocence of children. So these are all very, very basic constitutional, civil right based things. Okay, medical freedom and privacy, due process. Right? These are very basic things. And so it should be fairly simple for folks to sign on to this as a way to say to you, the constituent, hey, this is where I stand on these issues. And the reason we do this is because everybody takes an oath, but we don't know what they stand for. And in this day and age, with so much division and so many people taking the exact same oath, you have no idea where they stand on their values. And so right now we have about 40% of the entire legislature, about 40 people in the legislature of 105 have signed this pledge. And most of them are in good standing. So we're in a good spot. It's really great. It's really great to see that kind of coalition there. And we're super proud of it. All right. Well, what is this, Zigzag Julie? Did you? If you were with us last year, you know what Zigzag Julie is. So I don't know if we should go down that road again. Hey, look, if she keeps popping up in the news, we may have to point out who Zigzag Julie is once again. Anyway, all right, folks, we're in overtime. We're in bonus time. What's this last comment? I would also ask that you pray Guthrie would allow prenatal equal protection bill a full hearing. Yes, we covered that yesterday, I believe. And there's a lot of bills that we hope Guthrie allows a hearing on. So let's do that. All right, folks, we're going to head out of here. We'll be back tomorrow for the Friday show. Thank you so much for watching us. We'll see you next time.
Rango and redneck reward. Her mama started sending up prayers, begging mercy from the Lord. Well, I stole her away, but I ain't what they say. Didn't tie her up and drag her off. But now I'm an outlaw to the in-laws.
This bill, I think, it puts a stake in the ground that says we have a sovereign right to protect what's ours.